You think you're tough? Try surviving a day in the Arctic at -85 degrees Fahrenheit, where your breath freezes mid-air. Metal sticks to your skin, and frostbite sets in faster than your Uber Eats delivery. For the Inuit, this is just Tuesday, but for you, let's be real. You'd be a human popsicle before lunch. So why wouldn't you last 24 hours as an Inuit? Buckle up and let's find out. Have you ever stepped outside on a chilly winter day and thought, wow, it's so cold? Well, try that with air that's so frigid, it would steal your breath mid-gasp. This isn't just your winter morning, this is Arctic, extreme, where the air itself is a weapon. Inuit territories routinely hit -40 degrees Fahrenheit, but when the polar vortex strikes, -85 degrees Fahrenheit is cold enough to freeze your eyelids shut in seconds, turn your sweat into ice crystals under your clothes, and make steel as brittle as glass. Your modern body versus the Arctic would be a losing battle. Under 2 minutes, the skin can freeze instantly, with cells rupturing like ice expanding in a pipe. The wind chill is more like a freezing chill, as even touching metal could rip off your skin. It was hard for the Inuit to breathe in cold air, and they often covered their nose and mouth when outdoors. Inhaling the cold air feels like burning, and it can cause the moisture in your lungs to freeze, causing coughing fits or even pulmonary edema. If you're panicking, it will only accelerate the hypothermia. And let's not forget the issue of blood circulation. In the freezing area of the Arctic, the blood vessels can constrict violently as they try to divert warmth to your core. So expect having freezing fingers and toes. The Inuit survive because they're biologically adapted. They have a higher metabolic rate and subcutaneous fat, not to mention a lot of practices passed down from previous generations. But for you, your body will be screaming, "Abort mission!" the second you step outside. Your $500 extreme weather jacket is worthless in the Arctic. Inuit clothing is engineered for survival and not for fashion. They often wear a double-layered caribou fur, with the inner layer fur in for warmth and the outer layer fur out to shed wind and snow. They also have seal gut parkas, which are 100% waterproof and perfect for the cold weather. On their hoods, they use wolf fur trim, which blocks wind without freezing to your face, like synthetic fibers. Your gear will fail instantly in the Arctic, as your sweat freezes inside your jacket, turning it into an ice shell. The Inuit use breathable seal leather that allows sweat to escape while blocking wind. Modern jackets also use tight weaves, so wind finds every gap. As for the Inuit, they have loose-fit designs that can create a warm air barrier. Your waterproof hiking boots would become stiff as concrete at -40 degrees Fahrenheit, cutting off circulation to your feet. But the Inuit wear kamak boots, made with sealskin soles and caribou fur uppers. They flex with each step, with grass insoles for extra insulation. The Inuit never used metal on their clothes, as these can freeze to the skin. Instead, they use bone buttons and sinew lacing. They also make use of mittens which were made of fur, and they protected the hands from frostbite. Inuit clothing was usually made from caribou skin, with its hollow guard hairs that trapped air and provided warmth. Other animals like seals and polar bears also provided valuable fur to the Inuit for insulation and waterproofing. Sometimes they even used whale bladders to make outer layers of their clothes. Would you wear an outfit made from an animal's bladder? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. In the Arctic, you might be seeing a flat, white expanse, but the Inuit see a minefield of death traps. There are pressure ridges, which are hidden cracks under the snow, and also the Arctic had tide cracks, which are invisible gaps that open without warning, posing a lot of danger to the Inuit. The Inuit also deal with overflow ice, which are thin layers of ice that are hiding water beneath. It might seem like solid ice ground, but with a heavy load on the ice, it can crack and cause you to fall right into the freezing water. If your ice thickness is wrong, then you might just plunge into freezing water and darkness. They usually measure the ice with a harpoon to check the thickness, with 4 inches suitable for walking and 12 inches for sleds. Fresh snow usually covers ice and hides the rotten, thinning patches. The Inuit have to check by stabbing ahead with a tunic, which is a form of an ice probe. They also had to be wary of currents and tides. Saltwater ice can shift unpredictably, so just taking a walk can cause you to fall and get injured. The Inuit have to listen for creaks and avoid dark spots. Traditional knowledge passed down for centuries in the Inuit communities is what they follow. They know that warmer temperatures create rotten ice, which is thick but brittle, and sometimes the weather can be unpredictable, leaving deadly thin patches in the ice. So how did the Inuit travel and survive? They moved around in daylight to easily see the thin spots. They also moved in groups, so if one person is injured, the others could help. But at the same time, they spread out when walking about to avoid disaster caused by heavy weight. If they fall into the freezing water, they can become unconscious in 10 minutes. There are no grocery stores in the Arctic. For the Inuit, food fights back. And sometimes, it wins. They have to hunt seals by stalking them for hours. And when it comes to a walrus, they are 2,000 pounds of muscle and tusks that can impale you. And if you want to eat some bear meat, the polar bear is your prey, or you could be its prey instead. It's definitely not easy to engage in hunting. If you want to catch a seal, you would have to find a breathing hole in a 10-mile ice field. Then, stand motionless while waiting for the seal to come out of the hole. Once it surfaces, you need to strike fast and catch the seal before it dives back in. With the seal, they can make clothes, enjoy meals, and even use the oil for their lamps, skin, and as medicine. The caribou is very important to the Inuit, as they use the fur to make most of their clothes. They also need the caribou for meat, and to herd them, they make use of kwamutik sleds and dogs. If it was you, you would probably spook them by yelling at them to come back. Fishing in the Arctic isn't as easy as visiting a stream to cast a line. First, the Inuit have to dig thick ice to create a hole and access the fish. They cut through 4 feet of ice, then jig with seal bone lures. Even fishing could leave you freezing outside. The Inuit usually held their harpoon and knives to use in hunting. They also had kamik boots, which was perfect for silent stalking. If you make one mistake, you might become the dinner instead. If you have an injury, there's no ER to run to, and you can only hope that the elders in the community will heal you. And when you miss a shot, there are no ammo refills. Getting food in the Arctic is a race against time. At the Arctic temperatures, if your skin is exposed, it takes less than a minute for the skin to freeze. And before you know it, your skin turns ghostly white. That's why the Inuit always ensured that they were completely covered up. To prevent frostbite, the Inuit wore thick mittens made with caribou fur. Your touchscreen-compatible gloves won't survive in the Arctic. Also, they never stop moving, even when in their igloos or going to sleep. They constantly move, foot wiggles, hand flexes, and more. This keeps the blood flow moving. The Inuit follow the buddy system to prevent frostbite and stay warm. After waking up, they might inspect each other's bodies and ensure that there's no frostbite on the ears, hands, and toes. They also check children regularly. Another way to prevent frostbite is the rendered seal fat rubbed on their cheeks. This would block the wind and also lock in moisture, and is way better than the chapstick that would probably freeze solid in your pocket. You would probably lose your fingers in less than a day if you decide to live like an Inuit. If you drop your phone in the snow and try to pick it out with your bare hands, you might just have flash frozen fingertips. And wearing tight boots would cut off circulation to your toes, so you won't even feel them at all. The Inuit also had different methods to prevent freezing and frostbite. like chewing seal blubber to warm their mouth and throat. They also drank warm broth, often, and kept themselves active to prevent freezing. The Inuit were able to build an igloo in 3 to 4 hours, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to do it. When they first start learning, they might need only 8 hours to build it. But for us in the modern day, it would probably take a whole day to build one. By the time you're done, the blizzard would leave you with frostbite all over. Igloos are made in a long process. The blocks are usually about 40 pounds each, cut with whalebone knives. The dome shape can withstand 100-mile-per-hour winds, as the wind would go around it instead of crashing into it and allowing it to fall. To build an igloo, the Inuit had to first choose the right kind of snow. They can't use fluffy snow, or the igloo won't hold up at all. So they chose compressed snow, which offers great insulation and is pretty firm. They have to select a location with compact snowdrifts, and then use knives made of whalebone or metal to cut large blocks of snow. Next, they stack the snow blocks in a spiral pattern, with each block fitting perfectly with the previous one. It creates a dome shape. At the front, they have a narrow tunnel, sometimes dug slightly below ground level. This is for entry and exit. Afterward, they filled any gaps with more snow for insulation and added features like windows made of clear ice and seal gut skin. Then they leave openings on top of the igloo, allowing heat to escape. The igloo is made of snow, so you might think it is impossible to keep anyone warm. But the igloo is a result of the years of engineering expertise passed by the Inuit. Aside from snow being an impressive insulator, there's usually more than one person living in the igloo, allowing body heat to pass around the igloo. Aside from that, the Inuit had the seal oil lamp to keep the heat in the igloo. They usually placed their bed on a raised platform because cold air is heavy and sinks to the bottom. By staying in the middle of the igloo, they can stay warm. If it's you in the Arctic, you might end up using fluffy snow that would collapse instantly with no ventilation. The Inuit could build an igloo and stand right on it without collapsing. But for you, a flimsy tent would fly away with the Arctic wind. For the Inuit, it's a struggle to stay hydrated in the freezing Arctic, especially when there's a raging blizzard outside and all the rivers have been frozen into ice. So they turned to snow. But it's not as easy as you think, as eating snow is pretty much a death sentence. Snow is basically 10% water and 90% cold that would be injected into your body. So even if it offers momentary moisture, it can still speed up your hypothermia. Snow steals more heat than ice water, so it might not be easy to melt. The type of ice that you melt matters, as the Inuit harvest multi-year sea ice that has a lower salt content. They then slowly melt it in a stone pot, which would conserve fuel. Finally, they use seal bladder canteens to store the water since this is freeze-resistant. Due to climate change, the Inuit have been dealing with traditional ice patches that are now saltier or contaminated. There are also rain-on-snow events, which create inedible ice crusts. And as a modern person, you might not even recognize safe ice. If you're in the Arctic, you might just end up drinking seawater, which will cause your kidney to probably shut down after a while. If you suck on an icicle, your tongue will be frozen to the roof of your mouth faster than you can wear a mitten. If you get one injury in the Arctic, you won't last 24 hours as an Inuit. The Inuit wedding included using seal oil, which is waterproof and strong, and whale fat ointment that is antibacterial and insulating. When they were dealing with inflammation, they had to use cold plunges for shock therapy. If it was you, you'd probably beg for antibiotics that don't exist. And with a broken bone, you will probably have to make a splint with walrus ivory and sinew. Would you want to use whale blubber to heal your infection? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Aside from animal products and cold plunges, they also used herbal remedies. The Inuit made use of plants like fireweed, bearberry leaves, cloudberry leaves, and alpine smartweaves. They were used to prepare tea, and they used it to heal stomach aches, muscle spasms, and intestinal issues. The Inuit had medicine men which used spiritual practices to diagnose and treat illness, although this was probably not scientifically reliable. When they had frostbite and boils, they used lemming skins to draw them out, and they made use of massages to deal with headaches. The Inuit were living in the Arctic wild, which meant that there were always wild animals who could encroach on their territory. They had polar bears, wolves, and Arctic foxes often come into their living areas, especially where they stored their frozen meat. For the polar bears, they had to hunt them first before the bears came after them. They also used bloody baits to lure the wolves into traps. One of these is a freezing knife, and then adding animal blood to it. The wolf gets attracted to the blood and licks the blade, causing the ice to melt. The wolf then gets its tongue cut by the knife, and it leaves them injured and vulnerable to attacks. Aside from the blood ice lure, the Inuit also had tactics like luring bears into ambush spots. They used walrus carcasses to attract animals and then killed them, especially if that animal had been hunting their living area. If it was you, you'd probably find yourself sprinting in the snow as a polar bear tries to attack you. For the Inuit, they always honor the animal's spirit, even if they hunt it. Your brain would probably quit fast if you spent 24 hours in the Arctic. They deal with isolation, and that means no texts, no internet, and no memes. Not to mention that every meal requires hunting, and the cold weather is like torture. The Inuit have gotten used to this over the years with storytelling and the power of community. Even their children play outside at Arctic temperatures like it's recess. So let's face it, you wouldn't last a day in the Arctic as an Inuit, but for the Inuit, they've mastered the impossible for thousands of years. Do you think you have what it takes to last 24 hours in the Arctic? Let's know your thoughts in the comments, and tag someone who won't last 5 minutes. And if you're curious about how the Inuit lived their lives, subscribe to find out more.